Just by way of introduction, my wife is not able to be with me today, and we're both sorry for that. She really would like to be. She greets you. Her name was Jan Olson. I don't know if any of you here might have known her. Yeah, okay. And we married in 1984 in Idaho, but I had grown up in Eastern Oregon as a farm boy. Jan grew up in Northern California, and her father was carpenter, handyman, did a lot of things. And we both have stories of faith. We also have had a love for missions all our lives. But it's a good thing, I guess, growing up on the farm. I just will tell you a couple of brief incidents that really stick out in my mind that kind of help shape who I am. We raised alfalfa hay and grain. We were the largest family-operated hay producers in Malheur County at the time, without any hired hands. Just the three of us, my one brother and father, myself, and then my stepmother to a degree, but she was mainly the goat milker and fixed the food and whatnot. But in the fields, the three of us pretty much did all the work. And our farm lay in a rectangle, a half section, 320 acres, that lay in a long, narrow valley. And more than once or twice, I remember storms coming in when we had row after row after row of hay that had been cut and was waiting to be baled. And the storms would come in, and we would pray, Lord, protect this hay, because we guaranteed our dairy customers a minimum protein level, and we always told them, we sample the hay. We will never knowingly sell you anything lower than that. If you ever question it, sample it. If it comes out below that we've guaranteed, we will compensate you, either a refund of some money or bring you a different load or whatever. And we really did have a very good working relationship. In fact, in all the years we farmed, we had $50,000 hay contracts back in the 70s and 80s on just a handshake. You wouldn't do that today, would you? The one written contract we had was the one that defaulted on us and put us in really bad shape. But what I wanted to tell you was that time after time, we'd see the rain coming and we'd pray. And let's say the front of the rostrum here was the one fence line, and the other fence line beyond. We would see these storms come down the valley and literally split and go around our property. But it would often rain 10 or 20 or 30 yards inside the fence line and start again 10 or 20, 30 yards inside the fence line at the other end. Just kind of as a reminder, folks, don't forget who controls the elements, you know. But I remember one time really sticks out in my mind. My father was a little bit anxious because we did have a lot of hay down, and yet he wasn't overly so. It started raining, and it rained, and it rained, and it rained, and it rained, and if I remember correctly, if I'm not mistaken, I think it rained like for about a day and a half without really letting up. And we figured all of that hay is just ruined. There's not going to be much nutrition in that when it dries out and we can get it baled. And would you believe the Lord somehow blessed through all of that, and there was very little difference in the quality of that hay after that storm. But another time, it was a little different time in the season, and this one especially has stuck with me, and I will never forget this instance. My dad said, boys, it just kept raining. He said, boys, God knows our needs. But remember, He knows everyone's needs, and right now, He's aware somebody's going to be needing hay at a discount. And I treasure that. You know, all these years later, that still sticks with me. God's looking after us, but He's also looking after you and you folks over here and the folks that are not in the church but off the campus somewhere else. You know, God looks after all of us. And yet so many people don't know this. They don't have that concept that He's a loving God who cares about all of us, even when our own immediate circumstances seem negative, worse than negative, but just downright awful. God still will be in control if we will let Him. If we think that we're going to grab the wheel and get this thing back on track, we may be well headed for disaster. But as I told you, my wife and I had grown up with different backgrounds, but both very interested in missions. We talked a lot as we were dating. That was one thing that was very important to us in a future mate. Even before we said, you're the one for me and you're the one for me, we were talking about what things were important to us. And in 1984, about a month after we married, we submitted applications to the General Conference to go as missionaries. And I have to admit, I was downright offended when they declined us. My wife did not have a master's degree. She was a school teacher with a 5th year, but she didn't have a master's degree. And I was a farm boy with a couple of college classes, but no degree whatsoever. And I thought, but I have a heart to serve the Lord, and you don't appreciate that. And I talked to a pastor friend some months after, and he said, don't take it personally. He said, many places in the world now are requiring that missionaries must be educated at a level beyond their local population. And he said, don't take it personally. Well, we continued working in education. The year we married, we liquidated the farm, not because of that, but that one defaulted hay contract and a few other family issues just convinced us it was time to get out. And with hay prices as they are this year, my dad asked me, aren't you sorry we're not farming still? I said, Dad, I wouldn't trade it for what I'm doing. But I do love the rural life, I'll tell you. But Jan and I, after a year in Idaho, were called down to PUC. As Natalie said, I was the Women's Residence Hall maintenance director. And during my devotional time, I started sensing this almost an audible voice, come over to Macedonia and help us. And it's like, Lord, where's Macedonia in this case? And, a few weeks might go by, and then again one morning, it'd be, come over to Macedonia and help us. And I told my wife, I said, I sense the Lord's calling us somewhere else. I don't know when or where, but we talked about it, and she was kind of sensing it too. And Gem State Academy called me back to be the plant services director there, replace the retiring director who I had worked for. And so we worked there 2 years, and again, the second year, come over to Macedonia and help us. And I thought, well, Lord, we answered the Macedonian call. Now what? And the sense became stronger and stronger that He was calling us elsewhere. At the same time, our interest in Eastern Europe was growing. The country of Albania had been closed. Relatively few people knew about Albania. And as communism was collapsing in Europe in the late 80s, early 90s, it really caught my interest. Thank you, Jonathan. I'll step aside here so you can see that. So there's Albania. You see the boot of Italy, the heel of the boot over there is 50 miles from the coast of Vlora. The country is about 90 miles wide at its very widest part, and 300 miles from north to south. It's believed that Paul preached the gospel in Albania. He said he had preached from Jerusalem around as far as Illyricum. Illyricum is like the Dalmatian coast, Croatia. And the Albanians are descendants of the ancient Illyrian people. Christianity then entered Albania fairly early. This church is dated somewhere around the 6th century AD. In the 500s, something like that is what was believed when it was first built, and then there have been restorations since. The Ottoman Empire, as it expanded, took over the Albanian territory, and mosques were raised up. People converted to Islam. But then I say there are 4 kinds of people in the world. There are pessimists and optimists and realists. I like to think I'm in that latter category. Probably not always, but I like to be. And then there's the opportunist. And the Albanians are definitely in that category. Now, they're quite a fearsome people. They were part of the Praetorian Guard who guarded the Caesars. But in World War I, as the Ottomans were occupied with wars in other places, they declared their independence with no real army, with no real backing, international backing. They said, we're through with you, we're independent. And actually, after the great powers divided up the territory, then Albania, in fact, had its independence again. But then after World War II, the communist government was established, and again, the opportunistic mindset really comes into play here. For about 19 months, the people were closely aligned with Yugoslavia. And Yugoslavia, many of you may know, had kind of a progressive form of communism. They allowed a lot more travel than other countries did. And as the Albanian people saw that Yugoslavia was still somewhat poor and progressive, they said, this isn't so good. We're through with them. They tore up the railroad track that connected the two countries, and to this day, it has never been reconnected. So our rail system inside of Albania does not connect with any other country, although we border Greece, Macedonia, Montenegro. We have no connection. They tore up 3 kilometers, about 2 miles worth of track. And there are about 800,000 of these bunkers around the country. And tunnels all over the hills where they parked big, heavy military equipment. The churches were destroyed. In our city, the Orthodox church within our city, the one wall was taken out and it was turned into a firehouse. The mosque was turned into an art gallery. Some of the other mosques were turned into grain depots and different things around the country. So, the government just appropriated all of the religious institutions, structures, and the minaret here at the mosque was used for target practice. The artillery group was shooting at the tip there and blew off the top 15 feet or so of that. And some of my friends tell me, somewhat shamefacedly, that when they were in high school, oftentimes the teachers would say, tomorrow's going to be an action day. Bring shovels, picks, different things, we're going to work. And they might march 5 miles from the school and dig irrigation ditches for the olives. They might be building new terraces. But there were other times that they actually were tearing down churches and mosques. There were a few Jewish places of worship. I don't know if we'd really call them a synagogue, I suppose so, but the Albanians don't call them a synagogue. But anyway, they say there were a few places where the Jews worshiped, a small Jewish community of maybe 1,000 in Albania at that time. Then, as I said, in the late 80s, early 90s, communism was collapsing in Albania. They had been brainwashed, so to speak, or at least the propaganda was very strong that Americans are dying for food and they're going to attack us, and many other such ideas were put forth to the people. A friend just a couple months older than I am told me that when he was 17, part of their life growing up was that they would suddenly blow the sirens, get them up at 4 in the morning, assemble all the young men in town, in the city, and have them pick up large rockets and mortars and different artillery weapons and ammunitions and stuff, and they march them 10 miles from one depot to another depot. And then, they might be excused from school that day, but the next they had to go to school. But that was just their life. Without warning, be prepared for an emergency. There's going to be an invasion. And they really laugh about that now. So there's the city of Vlora. Today, you see there are a lot of not skyscrapers. The tallest one is 13 stories tall, but large buildings. When we moved to Albania in 1997, the tallest building in the city was 6 stories high. And there were only 3 buildings that high in the entire city. It's grown a lot. There used to be an aviation field essentially just about at the end. Well, you see along the coastline there's a strip that runs diagonally across the screen there, and if you went straight out from that and then to the right past the large buildings, That's where the aviation field was. And people have moved in and just built houses on the field. They closed it to military use, and people moved in, and there's a lot of illegal construction of homes there and so forth. There haven't been any planes fly in there since the 90s. So in Albania, we have worked with friendship evangelism. We've offered courses for English and guitar. We focus primarily our English courses on adult professionals initially, and limited numbers, 20 to 30 individuals in different levels. We try to have classes of 5 to 8. Give us a repeated exposure with them at a rather personal level, because the people of the Balkans, not just Albanians, but the people of the Balkans have been rather suspicious, especially of organized religion, because in Greece, the Orthodox Church is very much involved in the government. In Serbia, the same. In Kosovo, the Muslims have been very involved in the politics. And in Macedonia, of course, both the Orthodox and the Muslims are quite involved in politics. And Albanians have prided themselves on the fact that basically they have coexisted. Muslims, Catholics, and Orthodox have coexisted peacefully for centuries without real serious problems of a religious nature. In more recent years, we've had more kids coming and fewer adults. Our classes have kind of dwindled. I can tell you a little about that in a bit, but I relate a lot to what Travis said in the video clip that we saw, that it's challenging to do so much when you're by yourself. But we have some really good people. I thought I had another photo of Mario, the gentleman furthest in that photo on the left. Just remember Mario. I'll tell you a little more about him in a bit. We have concerts and with our guitar students. We've had seminars, a couple of health seminars and different things. We try to tie little religious things into it, but they, by and large, haven't wanted too much direct religious instruction. Public evangelism, not only for Adventists but also for others, has not worked well. The Seventh-day Adventist Church, in a country of 3.5 million, today there are about 90 active Adventists. Officially, there are around 340, I think. There have been over 800 baptisms. Around 130 or 40 have immigrated out. The others have just kind of drifted out, away from the church, still in country. But we have these cocktails after different events, and my wife and a couple of friends have prepared vegetarian dishes, appetizers and things, and people have really liked that, and then they want to know more. Well, how did you do this? You guys are vegetarian. What is this? I have to tell you quickly about vegetarianism. When we went to Albania, we decided that we were going to try to remain vegetarians, but we were not opposed to maybe if we were invited to a home and meat was served, we might eat it if we needed to. We would see how it went, ask the Lord to guide in that. And probably in our own home, we wouldn't find it necessary, but we had friends that went to Cambodia and would not eat meat, but they couldn't get a good, healthy diet otherwise. And my friend who is, I think Arnold is 6'3". Some of you might know Arnold Hooker. Arnold lost 40 pounds in about 9 months, and that was not healthy. And he decided that he needed to do something with his diet. People were sending Vegemite over to them and stuff. And, one of our neighbors said, "You can't live as a vegetarian in this country." And I said, "Why not?" "Well, you just can't do it. It's impossible." I said, I'm in my 30s and I've been vegetarian since I was 11. My wife was basically raised vegetarian, second generation, so our kids are third generation vegetarians. And they said, no, it's absolutely impossible for the kids. Well, my kids were among the healthiest in the neighborhood. So then the argument switched. It's maybe possible, but it's too expensive. Maybe physically you can do it, but economically you can't. And so I said, okay, let's check something out here. How much do you pay for food in a month? And there was another neighbor from across the street talking also. So this family had 3 children, roughly the same ages as ours, and the parents, so that's 5 in the home. The family across the street were mother and father, two teens, and grandma lived with them most of the time. So again, 5 in the home. Family next door spent almost the same amount that we did every month for food. Family across the street, and they had meat 2 to 3 times a week. Family across the street had meat typically twice per day. They spent considerably more. I said, okay, next. How much do you spend for medical care during the year? Or during the month? During the month. And so this family was spending about 5 days' wages per month in medical expenses. This family was spending almost a half a month wages each month, with 2 working, yes, but almost a half a month wages per month in medical costs. And I said, well, we spent $12 last year. I didn't say last month, I said last year. And half of that was a can of charcoal that we had purchased, and about half of that can of charcoal we had used treating other neighbors with different ailments. So I said, who comes out ahead? So anyway, over the years, they've come to respect us more on that. We've had Bible studies, and we have regular Sabbath worship. Bible study groups kind of come and go. We like to think that you can move people on a linear path from where they are to Christ. Just we get them there, right? You ever feel that that's the way it should work? It doesn't work that way. Even with Christ on earth, it typically did not work that way. Once in a while, there's something like that. But we have found with our friends, they work more on an elliptical path. They come close for a while, and then they go away. And then they come a little closer, but they go away again. And they come a little closer, and they go away again. And it was mentioned earlier today, the importance of short-term missions, but also long-term missions. And I can tell you with a certainty, both are important, both are necessary, both can be effective, but it's the repeated going back that has been winning the confidence of the people with us. And what do you see there? Bringing in the firewood on the pony while he talks on his cell phone. Kind of interesting. Millions of people going to their grave not knowing Christ. It's a privilege for us to be able to share the gospel with them. These ladies are from a village only 6 miles or so from our city. They don't speak much Albanian. They speak mostly Greek. And I don't speak Greek. They are just super friendly. They're not smiling in that photo. It's kind of normal with a lot of people. They think you have to look serious or even look away from the camera. But gotten Maureen involved in church. He reads the mission story, takes up the offering on a regular basis. For a while, he was the only teen coming because others, like I told you, had to be in school on Sabbath at the high school level. He was 8th grade. Patricia and Lily helping out with a cooking class. My wife with some of Lily's friends at the cooking class. And these gals just really had a good time. And there we are at the meal after they got it ready. A lot of parents have told us they want their kids to come spend more time with us. Sadly, many of the adults say, it's too late for us as adults. It's too late for us. Work with our kids. You can tell them about God, but for us, it's too late. We want to do more health work. That really is a good way to their hearts. We've done things like hydrotherapy. I've gone to different homes and done hydrotherapy for people who are ill. We've written out things for people with problems with ulcers, diabetes, heart, different fact sheets and dietary suggestions and things like that. People have really responded well to that. And as I told you, long term really is making an effect on their thinking. One lady who also has passed away now, but years ago we had a furlough every 3 years. We were going for our second furlough, and she said, well, it's goodbye, I'll never see you again. I said, why do you say that? She said, because Americans and missionaries in particular, they don't stay more than 6 or 7 years and they're gone. And I said, well, we intend to come back. We believe God called us here and we intend to come back. Nah, you'll not come back. And I said, Lord willing, we'll be back. So 4 months later, we were back. Next furlough, she said, this is it. This is goodbye for forever. I said, why? 9 years. That's more than anybody stays. I said, well, there are a few other families that have stayed that long in other cities, you know. She said, no, you're not going to stay. It's too hard here. You've got your families back in America. And I said, no, we intend to come back. She said, no, you're not coming back. And I said, listen, Grandma, she was an older lady. I said, I'm here not only with these boots, but with this heart. And oh, that just made her smile so much, and she was so glad. And then when we did return, she said, now we've come to understand that you really believe in what you're here for. If you keep coming back, then you must believe in this. As I told you, we want to do more in health. What's missing? A lot of resources. Property is about $25,000 per acre for average property. We believe that the Lord wants us to expand our work in health, but we aren't in a position to do that. I was an EMT firefighter here in the States. My wife had a health minor in college, but we're not that level of medical professional that is really needed to be recognized before the government or anything. We're not looking for any, fancy recognition, but to be even tolerated to some degree. We have people at the City Hall. We have people in the health department. We have two good friends who are members of Parliament. None of these are believers, but they're good people, and they have an interest in helping us go forward with it to the extent they can. The members of Parliament, that's a whole different story. Politics really do override just about everything, but still, they're good to us. The one family actually had us in their home for New Year's, stayed overnight at their home, had dinner with them and everything, which is really a big special thing. But so the resources, maybe it's you. You can pray for friends who are preparing for baptism and others who've not yet made a decision to be baptized. Augie, the girl on the left, is baptized. I think she's coming back from university this fall to help us teach guitar, and it'll be really good because she's really got a heart for the Lord. Her friend on our right, her left, is getting into some real trouble, and we want to encourage her. We need regular prayer support. We need financial support monthly as well as special occasions, and volunteers. And I heard that some of you here are considering mission service. You're just not really sure if the Lord is calling you to that, how you could make it work. My time's going to run out before my hour's up, and I did promise to quit in less than an hour, but I have lots of stories to tell you of how the Lord has sustained us, on site or maybe even from where you are. We've had some volunteers to create a website for us that hasn't come to fruition yet. I think we're getting closer. But there are different things that people can do stateside. We have Patricia and Lily, myself, and two Albanians who are interested in doing the LIGHT training, Lay Institute of Global Health Training from Wildwood. We have at least two Albanians. There may be even 4 Albanians who are interested. There is no organized health work in Albania, really. ADRA is doing a little bit, but they're doing clinics. We want to do more preventative work. And I got a phone call a few days ago from a friend who said another mutual friend has a property outside the city in an area we haven't looked. I mean, we keep scouting around because the Lord has really put this on our heart that we need to do something more than what we're doing. I'd like to have a facility where we can even have like summer camp, have a retreat for the church to come to, because there isn't anything like this in all of Albania. And not for the Adventists. I mean, we've rented from other denominations, but it hasn't necessarily gone well. But if we had something our own, and this mutual friend is interested in possibly some sort of a cooperative arrangement with us where we could use his property. Another thing we've talked about is maybe rent a small hotel initially for a long weekend. Invite the 2 MPs, maybe on separate occasions. No, they're the same party. That would work. To invite the 2 MPs, to invite some of the doctor friends, the local public officials, some people who we have connections with. Maybe invite them as sort of an introductory free weekend of vegetarian food and health messages and devotional talks and different things. Give them an introduction to what our view is, and then down the road, maybe in a few months, do something else where we actually charge and do a 10-day program. When I say rent the hotel, I mean we have 8-unit hotels, 10-unit hotels, so we could do something like that. It would be feasible. It would take some funds initially to do it. I have to tell you really fast. We were with Adventist Frontier Missions until 2010, and at that time a decision was made by the AFM and the Albanian Mission that we would leave and they would take over the project there in Albania. It didn't work out well. Never did happen. And we said, we believe that it's premature. The Lord still has put it on our hearts that we should be here. Like the video clip, until the Lord tells me to leave, I'm here. That's kind of how it's been for us. It's been challenging. In the last 37 months, my wife and I have been apart 23 months. Most of the time, she's been stateside, caring for parents who are ill, heart problems, while I've been in Albania. But there have been times where she's been stateside and she's been in Albania and I've been stateside. And then there are times like now where she's in Oregon and I'm in Washington. So we're both stateside, but we're different states. In a state of not disorganization, but anyway, disconnect of sorts. But anyway, the Lord has blessed us. We're able to keep in contact with people. We're able to keep going, even when it looks like it's impossible. And I had people tell me different situations are impossible, and I tell them, my God specializes in the impossible. And there have been so many situations. I am going to use my other 3 minutes, and I'm going to tell you just a couple of them, because the year that the AFM was pulling out, we actually went one more year with AFM to 2011, and then we transitioned. We're an independent ministry, but I say it's a more dependent ministry. We're more dependent upon the Lord than ever before. Came to the end of the year, and I was $3,200 short of making the expenses for the end of the year and clean it up, square it off for the end of the year. The new board that we had organized to take over the work, because we do have a nonprofit corporation, a nonprofit foundation registered in Albania. The new board had said they would do it as a trial, which technically was up in October, and we're coming to December. We're $3,200 short, and I'm saying, Lord, we're $3,200 short. I don't know where it's going to come from. We lost the majority of our donors when AFM announced that we were no longer with them. We're not in the magazine or anything. We lost the majority of donors there, and some unexpected expenses and everything. But Lord, you've got it under control. You'll take care of it. The second week of December, $1,100 came in. Good. We're still $2,100 short. In the next few days, another $100 came. But then we're getting down to the end of the month, and there's nothing there. And our transfer was on the 20th, and $100 wasn't enough to transfer because the transfer fees are just too high. And so we prayed about it and said, Lord, I really believed you wanted to continue this work. We believe that you called us back. It doesn't seem to be working out. If you want me to shut it down, I will. If you want it to go, it's yours. You've got to take care of this. And cut the story short, the final $2,000 came through and arrived in town in time for me to finish everything up in the final 3 hours before the year closed. Final 3 hours before the year closed. It's been that way ever since we've been in Albania. It's often been that way, but ever since we've been disconnected in a sense from other support and so much more reliant on the Lord. And I tell you, there was a time when I made a $2,000 deadline in the final 5 minutes. And there are so many other stories. I can't tell you all of them. I have to tell you that one of the MPs, the members of Parliament, the Lord impressed me at one point when we were hurting for money to go talk to him. I said, Lord, him? I'm misunderstanding this. Stan, you need to go talk to Chimi. But Lord, contact Chimi. So I prayed about it for like 4 days, and finally I said, okay, Lord, I'm going to do it. But you got to guide this thing, because Chimi is owner of a string of casinos. What do you want me asking for ministry money from a casino operator? They're small casinos, but still. I contacted him, explained our situation. I just have to cut this really short, but explained the situation. He said, "How much money do you need?" And I said, "I don't have a transfer coming for 3 weeks. I need $1,300. And he said, "Let me talk to my wife, and we'll see what we can do." He was called to meetings up in the Capitol. He was gone for several days, and he kept texting me, "I'm really sorry, but they're extending these meetings. I'm not back. I will talk to you when I get back." And I wasn't bothering him. He kept sending me messages. When he came back, he called me. He said, "Stan, can you be at my office in 10 minutes? I said, "I'll be there." I went over, and that afternoon was my deadline. And I'm saying, "Lord, I don't know what you're doing. If he doesn't come through with a $1,300 loan, I don't know what I'm going to do." And it's like, "Why are you worrying, Stan? I thought you gave this to me. Now just let me handle it." So the Lord talks to me and chastises me periodically like this, and I'm glad for it. I got to the office. Chimi said, "I am so sorry that I was delayed." He pulled out of his suit pocket the stack of bills, laid it on the desk. It was euros. And I said, "Wow, we didn't really finish the conversation." He said, "What do you mean?" I said, "Well, I don't know the terms." "What terms?" I said, "When do you want it back? Are you expecting me to pay interest on it?" "Stan, this is a gift to your work." It was 1,300 euros, which at the time was $1,600. And we had an extra $300 in unexpected expenses that month. It took us right to it. I've come to the point where I needed $1,900. I got $1,909. I needed $200. I said, "Lord, I've got to have $200. One of my former student workers contacted me by email. "I'm impressed that you need something, and I'm sending it." He sent by Western Union. He paid the fees, arrived to me, $200. And then I realized, I need $10 more than that because I forgot the travel to the airport because I'm flying out. A guy came by that I had lent money to, not expecting to get it back. He said, "Stan, unexpectedly I have money. I'm going to give you $10 back that I borrowed from you." The Lord takes care of us. My time is up. I could go on and on and on. Our joy is His glory. Do you agree with me? If I wanted a life of adventure, I could never plan more adventure than He's got me on now. People would say I'm crazy, my wife and my kids. When our kids came back in 2010, came back to the States, the two younger ones, came at separate times. Our son and I went together to the airport, and I said, "Christopher, this is really an important transition in your life. You know, you've spent the majority of your life in Albania." I forgot to tell you, the children were 4, 7, and 9 when we went. So here he is at 19, going back to Albania. He was 7 when we went, 12 and a half years in Albania. And I said, "You guys have been through a lot. You've sacrificed a lot." He said, "Whoa, Papa, stop." He said, "Don't talk to me about sacrifice." He said, "I consider my life has been a trade. I have traded things that my cousins and my friends in America have had. I've traded for something else. I got the better deal." So those of you who are wondering because of finances, I hope I've eased your minds a little bit. Those of you wondering because of your kids, I got a whole lot more I'll be happy to tell you. Those of you who are wondering for other reasons, I might have things to tell you there too. Caring for elderly parents, all kinds of things. Just let me close with a word of encouragement. Those who are struggling with decisions, last year I had 2 job offers. I could come back to the States and make more money than I've ever made before. And I've been happy with those possibilities. I said, I want to be where the Lord wants me. If it's Albania, if it's Idaho, if it's Oregon, all I need to know is that it's where He wants me. That's where I want to be.